Small-town mechanic Ray Ellison fixed a stranger's car for free. Clueless, the man was a famous race car driver. It was the kind of selfless act that had become second nature to Ray, even as his own life was falling apart at the seams. The irony wasn't lost on him as he worked. He could fix just about anything with an engine, but couldn't seem to repair what mattered most in his own life. The garage had been quiet all morning. Nothing but the soft patter of autumn rain against the weathered metal roof and the occasional distant rumble of thunder. Ray wiped his oil-stained hands on a rag that had once been white, now a mosaic of grease and memories. 23 years he'd owned Ellison Auto Repair, tucked away on the edge of Pinewood, population 3,842 and shrinking by the day. Each smudge on the concrete floor told a story. There by the hydraulic lift was where he'd taught his son how to change oil for the first time. And there near the office door was where his wife used to bring him lunch, her laugh filling the cavernous space better than any radio ever could. But those were echoes now, faded like the Pennzoil calendar on the wall still showing last April. 3 months since the divorce was finalized. 6 since Tommy had left for college out west, barely calling anymore. And exactly 2 years since Ray had lost his younger brother to cancer, the same disease currently eating away at what remained of his savings as he helped pay for his mother's treatments. The bell over the door jingled, dragging Ray back from his thoughts. He straightened up, wincing slightly at the familiar pain in his lower back. A souvenir from 20-plus years hunched over engines. "We're closed early today," he called out, not turning around immediately. "Family matter. I'm sorry to intrude," came a voice that didn't belong to Pinewood. Too polished, missing the gentle drawl that marked locals. "But I've got a bit of an emergency." Ray turned then, taking in the stranger. Tall, lean, with an athletic build partially hidden beneath an expensive-looking but understated gray coat. Early 40s maybe, with the kind of tan face that spoke of outdoor work, though his hands looked too clean for manual labor. Something familiar about him, though Ray couldn't place it. "What kind of emergency?" Ray asked, already knowing he'd help. It's what he did. Fix things. Fix people's problems. Even when he couldn't fix his own. Car died about a mile down the road. "I've got a meeting I really can't miss tomorrow in Charlotte." Ray glanced out the window at the steadily darkening sky and the sheets of rain now coming down harder. His mother was expecting him at the care facility in 20 minutes. The staff didn't like visitors after 8, and her good days were becoming increasingly rare. But turning someone away in this weather? "Let me grab my tow truck," Ray said with a sigh. "Show me where." The stranger's face brightened with relief. "I really appreciate this. I'm Jack, by the way. Jack Hawkins." The name triggered something in Ray's memory, but he pushed it aside. "Ray Ellison," he replied simply, reaching for the keys to his ancient tow truck. The rain fell in relentless sheets as they drove in silence, windshield wipers fighting a losing battle against the downpour. When they reached the stranded vehicle, Ray's eyebrows rose slightly. It wasn't what he expected. Not some flashy sports car, but a modest dark blue sedan with rental plates. "Doesn't sound like the battery," Ray observed after Jack tried the ignition at his request. "Let's get it back to the shop." An hour later, Ray had identified the problem. A failed fuel pump, combined with some electrical issues that suggested the car had been sitting unused for some time before being rented out. "They'll need to order the part," Ray explained, wiping his hands. "Won't be here until at least Thursday." Jack's face fell, his fingers tapping an anxious rhythm against his thigh. "Thursday? There's no way to get it sooner?" "This meeting tomorrow, it's important." Ray recognized the desperation in the man's voice. He'd heard it countless times before, from the single mother who needed her car to get to work, from the elderly farmer whose truck was his only connection to town, from his own voice when the doctor had outlined his brother's prognosis. "Charlotte, you said?" Ray found himself asking. Jack nodded. "About 3 hours from here." Ray glanced at the clock on the wall. 7:35 p.m. His mother would be disappointed. Again. "I've got a loaner car you could use. Nothing fancy, but it'll get you there." "You'd lend a car to a complete stranger?" Jack asked, genuine surprise in his voice. Ray shrugged. "You'd be surprised what you start doing in a town this size. We still operate on trust here." As Ray handled the paperwork, more a formality than anything official, he noticed Jack studying the few faded photographs pinned to the office bulletin board. One showed a younger Ray standing proudly beside a modified '67 Camaro at a local racetrack, trophy in hand. "You race?" Jack asked. Ray allowed himself a small smile. "Used to. Local circuit stuff, nothing serious. Haven't been behind a wheel like that in, Must be 15 years now. Why'd you stop? The question hung in the air, heavier than it should have been. Ray shuffled some papers, avoiding Jack's eyes. Life, he finally answered. Life has a way of changing your plans. Jack nodded, a strange look crossing his face. Dude, don't I know it? Ray handed over the keys to his personal truck, a 10-year-old Ford that had seen better days but still ran perfectly. Just bring it back when you can. I'll have your rental fixed up. How much do I owe you for the diagnostic and the loaner? Jack reached for his wallet. Ray waved him off. Nothing. Just get to your meeting on time and we'll call it even. Jack's brow furrowed. I can't let you do that. At least let me pay for the diagnostic. Look, Ray interrupted, suddenly weary. Some days doing something decent for someone else is the only thing that makes sense in this world. Today's one of those days for me. So take the truck, go to your meeting, and just pay it forward someday. Something shifted in Jack's expression. Recognition, perhaps, or understanding. He extended his hand and Ray took it, feeling the firm, confident grip of someone used to making deals with a handshake. Thank you, Ray. I won't forget this. After Jack left, Ray locked up the garage and headed straight to the Pinewood Care Center. But as he'd feared, his mother was already asleep when he arrived. Nurse Jenkins gave him that look, part pity, part judgment, as she informed him visiting hours were over. She asked for you, the nurse said softly. Had one of her good afternoons. The guilt twisted in Ray's chest, sharp and familiar. I'll come early tomorrow. He promised to himself as much as to the nurse. That night, sleep eluded Ray. He lay in his too-empty house, listening to the rain continue its assault on the roof, thinking about missed opportunities and roads not taken, about his brother who'd always said Ray was wasting his talent, stuck in Pinewood, about the look in his ex-wife's eyes when she'd finally admitted she couldn't do it anymore, couldn't keep loving someone who'd stopped loving himself. Morning came with unexpected sunshine and the ring of Ray's cell phone, an unfamiliar number. Mr. Ellison? This is Charlotte Memorial Hospital. We have you listed as the emergency contact for Evelyn Ellison? Ray's world narrowed to the sound of his heartbeat in his ears. His mother. A stroke in the early hours of the morning. Serious but not immediately life-threatening. They were running tests. He was on the road within 15 minutes, having called his only employee, Luis, to open the garage and handle any emergencies. The irony wasn't lost on him that he was now making the drive to Charlotte that his loaner truck had enabled Jack to make. The hospital was a maze of sterile corridors and fluorescent lighting that made Ray's eyes hurt. When he finally found his mother's room, she looked smaller than he remembered, fragile against the white sheets. Her eyes were closed, her breathing shallow but steady. Ray sank into the chair beside her bed and took her hand in his. It was cool and dry, the skin paper-thin over blue veins. When had she gotten so old? When had he stopped noticing? I'm sorry I wasn't there yesterday, he whispered, his voice catching. I'm sorry for a lot of things. Hours passed in the slow rhythm of hospital time. Doctors came and went. Tests were performed. Words like recovery and rehabilitation floated around Ray like leaves in autumn, never quite settling. It was late afternoon when Ray finally stepped out to find coffee, his back stiff from the uncomfortable chair, his mind numb with worry and lack of sleep. The hospital cafeteria was busy, voices and the clatter of trays creating a dull roar that matched his inner state. He was standing in line staring blankly at the food options when someone tapped his shoulder. Ray? Ray Ellison? He turned to find Jack looking at him with concern, still wearing the same clothes from yesterday. Jack. What are you doing here? Ray's exhausted mind struggled to connect the dots. My meeting was at the hospital foundation. I work with them sometimes. Jack studied Ray's face. Are you okay? You look like you haven't slept. The simple question, the genuine concern in a virtual stranger's voice, nearly undid Ray. He swallowed hard. My mother. Stroke. They brought her in early this morning. Understanding dawned on Jack's face. Is that the family matter you were dealing with yesterday? When I interrupted, Ray nodded, too tired to explain further. Let me get you that coffee, Jack said, guiding Ray to a table. And something to eat. When did you last have food? Ray couldn't remember. Yesterday's lunch, maybe? He watched as Jack navigated the cafeteria with ease, returning with a tray loaded with a sandwich, fruit, and the largest coffee they offered. Eat, Jack instructed, in a tone that suggested he was used to being obeyed. Then tell me how I can help. You don't have to, Ray began. You gave me your truck and fixed my car for free, Jack cut in. When you had your own crisis brewing, the least I can do is make sure you don't collapse from hunger. There was something almost comforting about Jack's authoritative manner. Ray found himself taking a bite of the sandwich, suddenly aware of his ravenous hunger. "How was your meeting?" he asked between bites, needing to focus on something, anything, other than the image of his mother lying small and still in that hospital bed. A strange expression crossed Jack's face. "Productive, actually. I'm consulting on a new project here. Transportation related." Ray nodded absently, his mind already drifting back to his worries. "The doctors say she'll need specialized care. Rehab. Months of it. He set down the sandwich, appetite vanishing. "I don't know how I'll afford it. The garage barely breaks even these days." Jack was quiet for a moment, studying Ray with an intensity that might have been uncomfortable if Ray had the energy to notice. "Let me make some calls," Jack finally said. "This hospital has excellent assistance programs, and I know some people on the foundation board." Ray started to protest, pride warring with desperation, but Jack held up a hand. "Think of it as me paying it forward," he said, echoing Ray's words from the day before. "Like you told me to." Something about the sincerity in Jack's voice silenced Ray's objections. He nodded once, then finished his coffee in silence. True to his word, Jack disappeared to make some calls. Ray returned to his mother's room, where he found a doctor waiting with updates that were cautiously optimistic. When Jack reappeared an hour later, he brought news that seemed too good to be true. Evelyn Ellison had been accepted into an experimental rehabilitation program, fully funded by the hospital foundation. "Just like that?" Ray asked, suspicious of windfalls after years of watching things fall apart. "The program needs participants," Jack explained smoothly. "Your mother fits the profile they're looking for." Ray wasn't sure he believed it was that simple, but exhaustion and relief overwhelmed his skepticism. "I don't know how to thank you." "You already did," Jack replied with a smile. "Yesterday, when you helped me without expecting anything in return." The next few days passed in a blur. Ray divided his time between the hospital and the garage, sleeping little and eating only when he remembered. Jack surprisingly remained in Charlotte, extending his stay to finish business, he said. He appeared at the hospital regularly, sometimes with coffee, sometimes with information about Evelyn's treatment program, always with a steadying presence that Ray found himself grateful for. It was on the fourth day, as they shared a quiet moment in the hospital garden while Evelyn underwent therapy, that Ray finally asked the question that had been nagging at him. "Why are you still here, Jack? Don't you have a life to get back to somewhere?" Jack was silent for a long moment, his gaze fixed on a monarch butterfly navigating the late summer blooms. "My life's been in transition," he finally said. "After 20 years of racing, retirement hasn't been as straightforward as I expected." Ray blinked, the pieces suddenly connecting. Jack Hawkins, the name that had seemed vaguely familiar, not just any race car driver, a three-time national champion who had abruptly retired 2 years ago after a near-fatal crash at Daytona. "You're that Jack Hawkins," Ray said slowly. Jack's mouth quirked in a half-smile. "There's a reason I drive rental cars in small towns. Fewer people recognize me. But why? Why hide who I am?" Jack finished the question. "Because fame changes how people treat you. They see the name, the achievements, the money, not the person." He turned to look directly at Ray. "You treated me like any other stranger who needed help. Do you know how rare that is in my world?" Ray was silent, processing this revelation. "The truth is," Jack continued, "I came to Pinewood for a reason. Stewart Motors is building a new racing research facility near Charlotte. They're looking for master mechanics with real-world experience and problem-solving skills, not just technicians who learned everything from computers. And you're consulting on this," Ray said, remembering Jack's vague explanation from before. "I'm heading the talent recruitment," Jack corrected. "The rental car breaking down in your town wasn't an accident, Ray. I was on my way to meet you." The implications of this statement settled over Ray slowly. "You engineered a breakdown too." "What? Test me?" Jack had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "I prefer to think of it as creating an opportunity for authentic interaction. Your name came up repeatedly when I asked around about mechanics who truly understand cars, not just how to follow diagnostic protocols." Ray's mind whirled with conflicting emotions. Indignation at being manipulated, flattery at being sought out, and a sudden, unexpected spark of something he hadn't felt in years. Possibility. "So that meeting," Ray began, "was about you, yes. And the foundation connection is real. Stewart Motors funds the rehabilitation program your mother's now in. That part wasn't planned, but when I realized your situation," Jack shrugged. "It seemed like fate." Ray stood abruptly, needing space to think. "I need to check on my mother." Jack didn't try to stop him, just nodded understanding. Take all the time you need. My offer will still be there. You haven't made an offer yet, Ray pointed out. Jack smiled, a genuine smile that transformed his face. Haven't I? The next few days were a whirlwind of emotions for Ray. He found himself torn between anger at Jack's deception and gratitude for what it had led to. His mother receiving care she desperately needed. Between the comfort of his familiar, if struggling, life in Pinewood and the unexpected possibility of something new. On the 7th day after his mother's stroke, Ray arrived at the hospital to find her sitting up in bed, alert and focused in a way she hadn't been since before her illness began. Raymond, she said, using his full name as she always did when she had something important to say. We need to talk about your friend Jack. Ray sat beside her bed, taking her frail hand in his. What about him? He told me about the job offer. Her voice was weaker than before the stroke, but her eyes were sharp. The one you're too stubborn to consider. Mom, no, you listen to me. She squeezed his hand with surprising strength. I've watched you shrink your life to fit inside that garage. After Frank died, after Sarah left, after Tommy went to school, each time you made your world smaller. Ray looked down, unable to meet her knowing gaze. Your brother always said you were the talented one, she continued softly. That you could have gone professional if you hadn't stayed in Pinewood to help with the family garage. Frank was exaggerating, Ray murmured, and I don't regret my choices. Don't you? His mother's question hung in the air between them. Raymond, look at me. He raised his eyes to meet hers. I'm not going to be around forever, she said plainly. And when I go, what will keep you in Pinewood? A failing garage? Memories. Fear? The last word hit him like a physical blow. I'm not afraid, he protested automatically. She smiled sadly. Aren't you afraid to try and fail? Afraid to admit that you might want more than what you settled for? Before Ray could respond, there was a soft knock at the door. Jack stood there looking uncharacteristically hesitant. Sorry to interrupt, he said. I can come back. Nonsense, Evelyn declared. We were just talking about you. Come in, Mr. Hawkins. Tell my son what you told me about this job. Jack entered, glancing between mother and son with an understanding that suggested he knew exactly what conversation he'd interrupted. It's not just a job, he said, addressing Ray directly. It's a completely new racing research division. We're combining traditional mechanical expertise with cutting-edge technology to develop the next generation of racing vehicles. And we need people who understand the soul of a car, not just its components. I haven't worked on race cars in years, Ray pointed out. But you've worked on everything else, Jack countered. Farm equipment, family sedans, vintage restorations. You've solved problems that factory-trained technicians couldn't figure out. That kind of practical genius is exactly what we need. Ray felt a long dormant excitement stirring in his chest, quickly tempered by reality. And my mother? Her care? The rehabilitation center is 10 minutes from the Stewart Motors facility, Jack said. And the company's health benefits are exceptional, including family care options. Evelyn made a triumphant noise. You see? No more excuses, Raymond. Ray looked between them, feeling cornered yet simultaneously. Freed? I need to think about this, he said finally. Jack nodded. Of course, but don't think too long. We break ground on the new facility next month. I'd like you to be there from the beginning. After Jack left, Evelyn fixed her son with a penetrating look. What's really holding you back, Raymond? And don't tell me it's me or the garage. Ray sighed, running a hand through his hair. What if I'm not what they expect? What if I've been stuck in Pinewood so long I can't fit anywhere else? His mother's face softened. Oh, my boy, that's not how it works. You don't have to fit into their world. You bring your world with you, your experience, your values, your heart. That's what Jack sees in you, what I've always seen. Ray felt something shift inside him, like a rusted gear finally breaking free. When did you get so wise? He asked, his voice rough with emotion. She smiled. I've always been wise. You've just been too busy taking care of everyone else to notice. The following week brought more changes than Ray had experienced in the previous decade. His mother continued to improve, the specialized therapy working minor miracles on her stroke-affected left side. Jack introduced Ray to the Stewart Motors executive team, who treated him with a respect he hadn't anticipated. And Luis, to Ray's surprise, expressed immediate interest in buying the garage when Ray tentatively broached the subject. I've been saving for years, boss, Luis admitted, just waiting for the right opportunity. Never thought it would be Ellison's, but he shrugged, a wide smile breaking across his face. Sometimes life surprises you, no? Indeed it did. 2 months after a famous race car driver's rental car had conveniently broken down outside his garage, Ray found himself standing beside Jack Hawkins at the groundbreaking ceremony for the Stewart Motors Racing Research Division. Having second thoughts? Jack asked quietly, noticing Ray's pensive expression as they watched the ceremonial first shovel of dirt being turned. Ray considered the question honestly. No, he finally said, surprising himself with the certainty in his voice. For the first time in years, I'm having first thoughts again. New ones. Jack smiled, clapping him on the shoulder. That's what second chances are for Ray. New thoughts. New beginnings. As the ceremony concluded and people began to disperse, Ray pulled Jack aside. I never properly thanked you, he said, for all of this, for seeing something in me I'd forgotten was there. Jack's expression grew serious. You know why I really sought you out, Ray? Beyond your reputation as a mechanic? Ray shook his head. That day of my accident at Daytona, Jack said, his voice dropping slightly. When they cut me out of the wreckage, the medic asked me if there was anyone they should call. And I realized there wasn't. Not really. 20 years at the top of my game, and I'd never built the connections that matter. He looked out over the construction site where the future facility would rise. When I decided to create this division, I knew I wanted more than technical expertise. I wanted people who understood that cars are just machines, but the people who fix them, drive them, depend on them, they're what matter. Ray nodded, understanding dawning. Like a small-town mechanic who fixes a stranger's car for free? Exactly like that. Jack agreed with a smile. Some people call it karma or fate. I just call it recognizing what matters. As they walked together toward the future they were building, Ray felt the weight of the past lifting from his shoulders. His mother was healing. His son was planning a visit to see the new facility. Even his ex-wife had called to congratulate him, her voice warm with genuine happiness for his new direction. One simple act of kindness, fixing a stranger's car, had somehow fixed what was broken in his own life. Not because of magic or miracle, but because it had opened a door he'd long ago stopped noticing was there. Sometimes, Ray reflected, watching Jack greet the engineers who would work under Ray's supervision, the things we do for others lead us to exactly where we need to be. Sometimes a small-town mechanic fixes a stranger's car for free. Clueless, the man is a famous race car driver, and ends up discovering the road back to himself.